What did the treatment and rehab entail?
In 2016, we were having a really unique year where I had been caught up in a lot of crashes, more than normal. And so every one of those are starting to give me issues. It's like just a bump of 20 G's is giving me issues, and that should be something that any driver can just not even think about, that I'm having issues with some of the simplest impacts. And they're going away, but they're, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, have another crash or run into something, and I'm back, having issues again and again and again. So I always thought that, when you got a concussion or you're going to have problems, you noticed it right after the impact, or at least a day after a crash, or they were always married to an impact or an instance, right? So here I am, I ain't had a crash in 3 weeks, but man, I'm feeling weird. I'm like wondering, what in the hell is this? So I talked to my crew chief and I said, I'm feeling these weird symptoms. Man, I don't know what this means for this weekend. If I'm getting worse and worse, I don't know if I can drive a car feeling this dizzy. Let's get a buddy of mine to be ready to drive the race car if I can. And he's like, okay, well, okay. Try to call Rick and let him know. So I called my boss, Rick Hendrick, and I said, hey, I got this happening, and I'm gonna try to get my buddy ready in case I can't drive. He's gonna drive the car. And my boss is like, are you crazy? Like, why are you not already talking to the doctor? Get your ass to the doctor and figure out what the hell this is. So I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I need to be doing. Why am I not at the doctor? You're right. So I went to, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Petty. Me and my wife drove to Charlotte to see him. And by this time, I'm dizzy and having problems with my balance and walking. Getting out of the car and walking to the door of the hospital, I gotta have a shoulder on somebody, or turning a corner in the hall, I'm like hands on the walls, to stay up. Any head movement of turning or up and down, left to right, would just turn the world upside down. And so we were thinking maybe it was something else. They talk about these rocks in your ears that kind of get, dislodged and need to be resettled. Vertigo. So he put me through a bunch of scenarios trying to figure out if that was it, and we couldn't recreate the problem, which we could with vertigo. You can find whatever movement it is and keep doing it and keep recreating it. There it is, vertigo. And one time a driver, Terry Labonte, had vertigo, and he went and rode a roller coaster for an entire day, and it retrained his mind and resettled that issue in his inner ear, and fixed it.
Wow.
Right. So I'm hoping that that's what I got to do, right? Just let that be it and I can fix it. But we couldn't recreate that issue, and he's like, man, I think you really have some, you have some sort of a head injury here and I did an impact test, and an impact test is about a 30-minute test on a computer, and it basically you're told a lot of words. You're supposed to remember these words and then recite them or be asked about these words 30 minutes, 15 minutes later or whatever, and same thing, you're asked about shapes, numbers, you play like a matching game. There's all kinds of scenarios and things you're doing. And so we take an impact test in NASCAR when we're healthy, and that's the baseline. And then when you have a crash or an instance, I can have you take the test again and decide whether you're deficient in some of these areas, and then I'll know that you have an injury or you may have an injury, and let's look a little further. So I take this impact test and we realize that, yeah, I've got some problems. He's like, yeah, we need to send you to Pittsburgh to see Mickey Collins, which is the doctor I saw in 2012. I've been in steady contact with Mickey since 2012 up to this point. So I'm like, great, I love to go see Mickey again. I know that Mickey can fix this, or Mickey will help me, and I'm starting to feel better, anxiety's starting to come down. And so I think Dr. Petty called Rick and said, Dale ain't gonna drive this weekend. We're going to see Mickey. I went to see Mickey probably every other week or every 3 or 4 weeks. I was on some medications that would bring my anxiety down and keep my anxiety really low so that the symptoms would kind of get numb. Anytime you have any kind of anxiety, the symptoms get really flared up, so that the medication would keep the symptoms down to allow me to, just have a decent day. And they would put me through a bunch of physical exercises to try to stir the symptoms up and make the symptoms happen. And the ones that made the symptoms flare up, I would take home and do. So I would do these exercises, and they were just normal in a gym exercises, throwing around a rate ball, a lot of head movement, tossing it over your shoulder, picking it, getting this, look at your head there. You're turning your head up and you're going up and down, and then putting the ball up, just simple stuff where you're moving your head around. And we would turn the lights out and turn a disco ball on and make the environment as complex as possible and do these exercises. And that was really triggering all the symptoms, and you just keep doing them until your body would just basically learn to deal with this environment, right? And you were learning your balance all over again. And then I'd go back to see Mickey, and we would see what new exercises they could give me to trigger them issues again. And we had to do them every day. I had a computer program and glasses that I wore with this program that worked to tether my eyes back together. And it involved a lot of 3D. The glasses were 3D, and it involved taking objects and the objects would go from 3D and they would kind of go back to normal. It would make your eyes physically hurt as those objects are trying to pull your eyes apart. And it felt like that. It felt like the things that I was having to look at and watch were like trying to rip my eyeballs apart. And it was strengthening that tether between them, it was making them forced to work together, and doing that really helped with the visual stuff. It's stuff that would make anybody feel weird, but it made me really have to work hard, my mind have to work really hard to gain these, simple functions back.